All right. And I have my little sign saying that we're live. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Keri.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, Kelly, actually, now we're live and I didn't get to you. Is Gunther, or how do you pronounce your family name?
It's Gunther. Just
Gunther.
kind of
There you
get rid
go.
of the first D, and but I do appreciate the way you pronounced it. So thank you. I
Very
take
good.
it all manner. So no worries.
Yeah, I've studied some German back when I was in Portugal, and that's I sometimes I think I when I see something that sounds German, I pronounce it that way. So
Mhm.
Gunther and Ulrich with the ch pronounced at the
Yes.
end.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Welcome to this live recording of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. It's an honor. I'm really happy to have you here with me today, and with the Papa PhD audience. So we're live on LinkedIn. We're live also on YouTube, and the audience may or may not have time to be on the live with us, but
Awesome.
eventually they this interview stays live on these two platforms and people can watch them later. But yeah, so thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. I know you are busy people, and I'm super happy that I was able to reach out to you and that you had the time to be here and to talk about this question, which, like we were saying, like I was telling you before we started the live, I it resonated with me a lot just through my experience during my PhD, coming here from Portugal to do it here in Canada, but then stopping my academic path and pivoting, and then having people look at me and say, "But you were going to be a professor? What's happening?"
Right.
So, and based on this, and knowing that so many people start on the PhD path, for example, and stop in the middle and get in that position of again having to deal with the expectations that maybe they had put out there for themselves, but that other people, their supervisor, their family, loved ones, etc., but also people who stop, but also people who get at the end and say, you know what, I'm not, I don't think I'm cut to be a professor. Now I'm going to work in government or in industry. And again, you need to deal with these expectations or these,
Mhm.
and the term that you use is boxes that you've carefully built during such a long time. And
Yeah.
now somehow you need to tear them up and do something else. And it's a challenge for a lot of people. And it's, I think that, it's safe to say that there's like psychological, emotional burden related to this type of situation of breaking out
Mhm.
of kind of a matryoshka of boxes that we've
Mhm.
that we've built throughout time, or that has been built for us throughout time. And this is why I'm super thankful we were able to have this almost an hour of conversation just about
Good.
this today.
Good. We are too. It's interesting you mentioned I was just thinking about getting my PhD and whose expectation was it and how did I kind of push through that? And I just thought while you were talking, it was only my expectation. No one else wanted me to get a PhD. No one else said I need to get it. It just was my own expectation that I had since I was in the
Mm-hmm.
fourth grade. And
Wow.
because of that, that helped me push through it. But I do wonder it would probably be much easier to abandon it midway through if it wasn't my expectation of myself that I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of, yeah, that was the
That
insight I had as you were saying that. Like, why do people drop off? I'm like, well, because others have told them to do it. And so when it gets to the
yeah.
really hard part, like the dissertation, you're like,
Yes.
screw that. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and it's true. That's a part that a lot of people do hit a wall and then say,
Hmm.
I'm not finishing this.
Right.
Kerry, I'm just gonna ask you, if possible, to swivel your camera a little bit so that you're more your face is higher. Yes, that's it.
Better.
Because you were
Okay.
kind of hiding before behind your name
Oh,
tag.
I don't wanna hide for you. All right, there you go.
Very good. So we're live. Everything is going fine with the live. And what I'll do is I'm going to start. I'm going to share your bios, and then we'll start the conversation from there. So now I'll pause just a second or two. I'll give my normal podcast intro, and then we'll officially start the interview.
Okay, good.
Welcome to this new episode of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Today, I have the great pleasure of having with me Kelly Guenther from Ohlrich Group, and from Ohlrich Group also Keri Ohlrich. Keri Ohlrich, Dr. Keri Ohlrich, Kelly and Keri, that was one thing that I thought those names are so
Painful.
close. I'm going to
Painful.
mix
Painful.
them up.
Yes,
but it's okay.
it's painful.
I'll manage. So Keri has a PhD. She has over 2 decades in HR leadership. She embodies a passion for transforming workplaces into thriving ecosystems. And as co-founder of Ohlrich Group, co-author of The Way of the HR Warrior, and co-author of Whatever the Hell You Want with Kelly, her mission is clear: empowering people to excel. Through the Breakout podcast with Kelly again, Keri delves into the narratives of those who break boundaries and embody change. She earned her PhD in Human Development and Organizational Systems from Fielding Graduate University. She also holds a Master's in International Peace and Conflict Resolution from American University, an MS in Global Human Resources from Loyola University Chicago, and also a Bachelor's in Psychology and Business from Carnegie Mellon University. Beyond her professional endeavors, Keri channels her skills as a court-appointed special advocate, volunteer advocating for children's welfare. Based in Southern California with her family and 2 dachshunds, Keri's passion resonates in her commitment to enhancing workplace dynamics and enriching lives beyond organizational boundaries. Welcome, Keri, to Beyond the Thesis.
I do feel a little bad that the dachshunds got a shout out. I also do have a husband and a child. So they are more important than the dachshunds, but I realize my bio only reads like family, and then the dachshunds are specifically called out. That should really be, I should really revise that. But I love how the dachshunds get their shout out. So yeah.
Well, animal, like pets always have the cuteness factor.
That is true.
That
is true. They are the cutest. Yeah.
And also now you're a dog person, and which not everyone is, even though everyone may have families. Now, now Kelly Guenther is the co-founder of Ohlrich Group, co-host of the Breakout podcast, and co-author of Whatever the Hell You Want, like I just said, in which she brings a holistic approach to people and talent, focusing not only on the organization, but also on the individuals who create teams. She has led sales training programs and certification processes for over 500 VPs, sales executives, and branch managers. Her unique leadership style allows for opportunities to diagnose needs and offer solutions through a deep understanding of the people, processes, and practices involved. Kelly holds a Master of Education from Carroll University and a Bachelor of Arts in English from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. She's an IPEC certified professional coach, as well as a certified pro-site change management practitioner, along with a variety of personality assessments, including Caliper, IPEC Energy Leadership Index, and Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. She also lives in Southern California with her rescue dog. There we go. Stone. She is an advocate for animals, ensuring that they find happy and healthy forever homes. Welcome, Kelly. Welcome, Keri, to Beyond the Thesis. Super happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having
so
us.
much.
So, we already kind of, showed where the bridge is between your work and why I invited you on Beyond the Thesis. And, although this question of, for example, quitting a PhD, let's say, for example, when you start writing and you feel that it's not going to happen, but it can happen at other points during the process. Also, apart from the fact that 80% of PhDs, depending on the domain, but in the domain of, let's say, science, life sciences, 80% don't have positions as a professor later on. So they have to get out of a box and then find where's another box I fit in. Or maybe ideally not a box, something free. And I don't remember the terminology. I really like the terminology you had of the evolving situation in the book, and now it's escaping me. But the freedom part means probably not a box, but a space, a
outside
community
of the box.
outside. But this question of expectations, and making decisions based on expectations, be it yourselves or others, can start really early, like you said, Keri. And maybe let's start with Kelly. I'd love to hear why you gravitated towards this question, and maybe an example from how in your life you dealt with this this problematic of, oh, okay, I now realize I'm inside a set of boxes that some of them may align with me, but some not. And now I really need to find a way to tear them up and move on to another way of existing in life and in society. What's a story you can share from your life, Kelly?
So I'm in the minority here. I'm the only one who doesn't have a PhD. So I'm outing, obviously you explained that in the bio. When I was a sophomore in high school, I mean, I was an average student. Average because of I loved English, loved history, loved all the arts pieces of school. Math and science were the triggers for me. I just had an emotional and almost like a physical reaction when I ever had to do a math problem. I would start crying, and I had all this tension in my body because I just didn't feel confident. And so when I was struggling in sophomore year, that's when people started asking the question of, where are you going to go to college? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? Like, you're at 15 or 16 supposed to know and have a crystal ball as to what that rest of your life looks like. And, my grades were, average, as I mentioned. And when, I said I wanted to go to college, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that was the future for me. And my math teacher knew that I was struggling and said, some kids aren't meant to go to college. And it can do one of two things to you when you hear something like that. It can either validate my fear of, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, there's no way, I should maybe not even explore college. Or it can light the fire in your belly to actually say, you know what, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so that's the option I took. I think that was always kind of in me anyway, but I just needed something to kind of stoke it. And so I decided to go to college. The first 2 years were a bit rough because I was in living situations where, I was living in a close little box with, with someone that I didn't know. And it turned out our styles could not be more different. Once I was able to get past and understand more about myself in college, I had a great mentor who didn't allow me to quit the first day, which is what I wanted to do because I'm like, I can't do this. I had people advocate for me every step of the way. And when I finally started realizing, Kelly, what is it that's important to you? Living alone was important to me. I couldn't be distracted. I wanted to have control of my own kind of surroundings. And that allowed me the focus to actually find what it is that I wanted and really work toward that goal. And so had that experience not happened, I don't know that I would be talking about this. I don't know that I would be where I am. And so as painful as it was to hear at the time, I mean, I can still think about where I was in the room, what I wore, all of that. Oh, wow. It gives you an opportunity to really decide for yourself and not let someone else dictate for you what your future should be. So,
yeah, that's a great story. And then it's interesting that a lot of I've heard different stories of, because these services, the idea is always to help young people find their path. But depending on the personality, on the background, on, I don't know, the preconceived ideas of the person having that job, some people actually cripple young kids at that point, saying, oh yeah, no, you're not and probably because they come from this neighborhood, no, you're not cut out for that, you're not cut out for graduate school or college. And depending on your personality, you can, like you said, you can be crushed, or it can embolden you, say, what, who are you to tell it? And then you follow your path. Thankfully, that's what happened with you, Kelly. But it's again, it's, how can I say? this was a moment where you were someone, maybe unknowingly and maybe out of some positive or some good goal, or how can I say, good principle on their side, but they were actually boxing you in, or trying to, and it feels like you react to it, and it's like, no, don't put the box this box around me. This is not helping me at all. Now, this is an interesting story, and it really depicts very well, or represents very well, a very definite moment in time. Like you said, you even remember what you were wearing, etc. When a box was, someone was putting a box around you. And sometimes boxes, and you mentioned it, Keri, we build them ourselves. And sometimes it's not a one moment thing. It's kind of a process of building a small wall around us. And I feel, Keri, that on your side, especially with saying that since you were 4, that you had this kind of vector, this kind of azimuth that you were following. It was more of that process. Can you tell a story, maybe that one or maybe another one on your side that relates?
I want to say too, when Kelly was talking, I was thinking that piece of the words are so powerful. So we tend to put expectations on everyone. I know I put expectations on my son. I try not to put so many, but I know you do, about even cutting your hair or going to college, not going to college, all those things. And it really is your personality that you kind of have to ask yourself, am I very much a rule follower? Because if Kelly was a complete rule follower, and Kelly and I know how much we follow rules, because we use the caliper assessment that we love so much. So we kind of have this percentile of 1 to 99 percentile, 99 meaning you very much like rules. And Kelly, it doesn't, and neither do I. So that helps us then when someone in authority or the hierarchy tells us something, our first reaction might not be to listen to it. But if you're a kid who is so rule and so authority based, and you respect that authority, and the authority, like Kelly's teacher, came in and said, not everyone should go to college. They're like, okay, well, the authority told me. And so that, just doing that kind of self-awareness work to say, how much do I love the rules? And if I do, it's even going to be harder to break out of some of those boxes just because of your personality. And so Kelly had she had an edge because she's kind of down the middle, if I remember correctly, Kelly, on rules. So, but to answer your question, David, for me, there are some expectations that are good. So that's what Kelly and I always try to say, that some expectations actually serve you well. I had an expectation that women worked in the family. I always saw women who worked. They raised a family and worked. My grandmother was a nurse at night. She went and delivered babies, and then she worked the 3rd shift. So she would go at 11 o'clock at night, deliver babies on her feet all night, and then come home. And at 5 a.m., she raised 4 kids, because her husband didn't do much, according to what I've heard. Like he went and did his own job, and then she raised all the kids and slept for a few hours, which is totally unhealthy. But I always had women who worked. So that was the expectation that I would work. And I like that one, so some of these actually serve you well. I think the one that I had, sorry if I said 4 years old, it was 4th grade that I remember.
No,
4th grade.
I may have
misremembered
it.
Oh, no.
Makes more sense.
I'm not very good detailed, but yeah, I would be really impressed if I was 4 though. But anyway, but no, I remember just in 4th grade having that expectation for myself. And so that one, thankfully, I didn't put a time frame on it. So I always knew in 4th grade I wanted a PhD. I thought it would be in psychology or something like that. And so that gave me a drive. What I had to be careful of, though, and especially when all of us are in school, you have these timelines, I will be a PhD, and then by 30, and then I will have a professor, and then I will be a professor, and then I will be tenured. And those things are what can drive you so just nuts. It can just drive you to the point where you feel like a failure, even though you look back, you're like, oh my God, I'm a PhD and I'm a professor, but I didn't do it by 35. So I'm a failure. So it's those types of expectations, right? That I had to watch. And so I got my PhD when I was 40. So that's really old compared to all the young 28-year-old PhDs who have this different trajectory. But I always knew I wanted to do it. It just took me a while to get there. And that's what also helped me propel during the hard times, which there were, and crying at night. And I was pregnant and I had a baby during it. So that was like not the best planning of timing, but it is what it is. So I think that some of those expectations can really help you. It's just making sure the expectation doesn't become bigger than you want it to be and have such rigidity to it that you can no longer even break out of that box because it's such as a solid box with no air holes, if that makes sense.
Air holes is interesting. You were talking and I was thinking, because the metaphor is boxes, right? But if we, and I was really thinking of it as like the Russian dolls, right?
Oh yeah,
matryoshkas, or cardboard boxes. But if we think just as let's say a virtual box, difference is there's a box that pushes you, that pressures you to stay how and where you are, is one thing, and that you don't really want. But if the box is a box which has a vector that goes out and that allows you to grow with it, that's an interesting box. And I think that's we can still use the box if we have these two types, like good boxes and not so good or bad boxes.
Well, I think that's it. Like that's what we want to, even for the expectations for our book. It's just not everything is negative, right? Again, some of these expectations are not bad expectations. But it's doing the work to understand where it comes from. How does it serve you? Is it constraining you? Are you being cruel to others? That's really the biggest thing. I know the title is Whatever the Hell You Want, but we do have a disclaimer in there that this doesn't mean you go out and like steal because you're like, hey, it's whatever the hell you want. No. It's doing what you want and living your authentic self, but not being cruel to other people and letting other people live their authentic selves as well. Yeah. So that's kind of, it's a balance, right? Because it's not all black and white. There's tons of gray, and that's kind of life, to figure that out and work through it.
Yeah. So, yeah, of course. And so in the book, you have, of course, a bunch of references in the end, but you clearly you talked with different people to get these stories, these different types of stories. Can you tell us a little bit about how, what the approach was, what the method was to write Whatever the Hell You Want, and to get this insight on this question of being stuck in boxes in life and being able to change that situation and to grow?
Well, it's really kind of born out of our podcast. So we had a podcast called Recharge Your Life, which we morphed into what is now the Breakout podcast. And we're always inspired by people who have made changes to their lives in ways that were either directly that they knew that they wanted to make the change, and so they did the hard work, and they're living their best life, or people who something happened to them, loss of a child, divorce, loss of a job, things that many of us can relate to, and some practical applications of the good, the bad, the ugly. What was something that what was the first step you took when whatever happened? And what we realized was that there are so many themes that kind of emerged from that, the fear, the isolation, the sense of there's a right way and a wrong way. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring it to life in a book, because I've struggled with this. I still struggle with it, of feeling like I should be. Keri and I are very conscious about using the word should, because it's a very judgmental word, and it's laced with a lot of shame. And so there's a lot of, we're inspired by the everyday people who've decided to do things that for them maybe took a longer time than others, but it was something that truly changed their life completely. One of my favorite stories is a guest who was a lawyer, did kind of all the aspirational things, right? Went to school, got his, became a lawyer, living the life, having a great career, making lots of money. Mom was very happy that son fulfilled her wish of becoming an attorney. And he said, I'm just not fulfilled. Like, this isn't my calling. And he became a professional clown. And his story was one that was so inspirational because there were so many people who, whether they said to his face or not, that there's a judgment because it's a very, very, very dramatic shift.
Yeah.
But for him, it was, seeing the joy on children's faces, and it was being able to bring happiness to somebody. And so he's living his best life. He never looked back. And I think that is the penultimate reason why we wanted to write this book, because we know there's a lot of people who are struggling with what does that next step look like. And we wanted to provide a model and a framework to which people can start looking at it for themselves, not with the expectation that they make a change, but if they want to, here's a pathway forward for you.
Yeah. I think too, Kelly, you said it. I was just thinking, I remember Kelly and I've had a lot of career conversations with people. When you're in human resources, people come to you and they talk to you. And I always remember this one person who came in, he had to only be like 31 or 32. And I could tell he wasn't happy, even though he was getting accolades, he was getting promotions, he was getting money, and he was from like McKinsey, like all the things that, again, you would check the box and say, oh, you're doing so well. Check, look at you. And he had a wife and a child and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I remember I said to him, you don't seem very happy. And he was kind of an asshole at times too. Like he wasn't like the best person to work with. Cause again, he had this he wasn't happy. And I asked him and I said, what did you want to do? What'd you want to do? Cause I don't think you wanted to do this. He said, I just wanted to be a PhD in philosophy. I just wanted to study philosophy. And I said, oh, tell me about that. He said, I was accepted to the University of Chicago, PhD in philosophy program. And I thought, oh my God. And I'm a Chicago girl. So of course I was all excited about that. And he said, but his father told him, no way, you'll never make any money. And so he ditched it and went to get an MBA. And now he's unhappy. And now I'm guaranteed he's not the best father or the best husband with that. And I remember that profound sadness that he had. And he was just like, well, I'm 31. I'm already married and a kid. What am I going to do? And it like still makes me tear up now because that's no way to live life. That's what I thought even then. That's no way to live life that you've already given up at 30. And you're like, well, that's the track I have to take. And Kelly and I, unfortunately, have heard too many stories about someone who's stuck and they're like, well, I got to do this now or else the wife or the husband won't love me or whatever it is. And we just wanted to put something good out there to help people who are feeling stuck, who can make that change, because it is, I will tell you, I was stuck. I have a different life now and I'm far happier and nicer. Well, I don't know about nicer. I hope I'm nicer, Kelly. I don't know, maybe. But at least it feels better, so, and I'm more authentically not so nice sometimes, but nicer. So I think that's it. It's addressing some of that profound sadness that we hear from people. And Kelly and I just don't, honestly, that like very hippie part of me is I don't want people to be sad. We do naughty things when we're sad and fearful and angry. It's not the best self.
Yeah.
No, and sometimes people don't have the ability, or they don't have a support system around them to help champion for them and advocate. Yes. And so that's a calling card for this book too, is we want to be the advocates and the champions. When you are down and out and you're feeling like, I don't know what to do, there's no way. That's why we wrote the book too, because you can be very isolating. That thought of making a change that can drastically upend your life or your career or the lives of someone else, it makes you question almost everything. And you start to doubt yourself in the process. And so there are many exit ramps, very few on-ramps, and a lot of people who are willing to support you to get on the on-ramp. And so we wanted to be in a very meaningful way, write a book that champions for people who at times we doubt themselves, because change is hard, and no doubt families love the people around them. And so when someone wants to make a change, it's very normal for there to be a reaction to the negative. And no one really talks about how to work past that. And that's why we wanted to really advocate for our readers.
Yeah. Feels to me like a lot of this fear of change from others has to do with, well, first, and it's a basic one, fear of the unknown. This I know. What I have today, I know.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with it, and I can, I
Yeah.
can feel safe. No fight or flight, I'm fine.
Right.
And then this person maybe who, let's say my partner, wants to do a pivot, how do I know what my day to
Yes.
day is going to look like?
Yep.
That's fear inducing.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's totally understandable. And what I feel you try to do in the book is to give people tools to first understand that situation, but still have the agency to say, trust me,
Yes.
I'm
Mhm.
going to do something, and you'll see it'll be better on the other side. Do you have any
Yeah.
feedback on, for example, the person who decided to be a professional clown? How after that initial fear maybe of his family and loved ones, how things now are today in that person's lives, or other stories. You've already said that, Keri, your own. You feel better. For sure. If you say that you're nicer, or people around you have a better experience of you, but you have other stories to kind of as a proof of concept that fear is normal, but on the other side, there's really improvement.
Yeah, I think the clown, which is one of our, again, favorite podcasts, he went through it though. I think this is
Mhm.
what also Kelly and I like to do in our podcast in the book too, is just to remind people that it's not an A to B and you decide to make the change and then, oh my God, everyone's so happy for you. And then the next day, everything's great. Like, yay. Um, Nope. And we worked enough with change management companies too. Change takes so many, many
Mhm.
years to actually stick. And so our clown friend, he lost friends. People were only friends with him because he was a lawyer. They didn't really want to hang out with him that he was a clown. Now, if you ask him now, though, he's married. He's so happy. He loves what he does, and he is at peace. And I think that's usually, David, what we hear more
Yeah.
is there's a calmness. That's how I feel. Like I have a more of a calmness. I still get like revved up about stuff, do not get me wrong, but there is a
As we all
calmness
do.
that I have. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's easy to get revved up right now, but there's a calmness that I can have to it, or a wisdom that's also getting a little bit older, but that calmness is what we hear from people who kind of get through it. But during it, it's hard. I mean, you can easily lose friends. When we talk to quite a few people who are recovering addicts,
Mm.
and you can't hang around some of the certain people. And what Kelly was talking about, like the family, for those of us who study human development in the PhD world, and I know a lot of your listeners are PhDs, they know homeostasis. And so family psychology, they want you to come back to that homeostasis and kind of run everything. And so if you
Stay
start to
balanced. Yeah.
exactly. So if you start to stick out, you start to do things differently, you're upsetting the apple cart. So if Kelly starts to question, why do we do this in a family? It's not just Kelly who's trying to change. It's everyone in her family.
Mhm.
Like, why can't we all move? Why do we all have to have children, or why do we all have to be, Baptist or something like that? Like she's now questioning the entire system. That can upset a lot of people. So you kind of have to be prepared for that, because it is not just you wake up and say, oh my God, I'm going to change. It's great. And then tomorrow it's going to be perfect. It's not how that happens ever.
No. Yeah.
No, no.
Kelly, did you have a reflection on that?
I mean, I agree to everything that Keri said. And, as you were talking, Keri, I was thinking various points of my life. I made a decision to move to California by myself in 2016. And I knew that would be a really hard change for my family to hear. I grew up in Wisconsin, and so you just kind of stuck around family. And I'm not stuck around meaning like you were forced, but there was just, like this expectation. You get married, you have kids. I'm not married. I don't have kids, and I decided to move. And when you make the decision and you execute on it, and you can see that you can do it, and you've blocked and tackled, and you achieved that thing, and you did that thing, even if it was something like I figured out, I have an appointment with the leasing manager at the apartment complex. Done. Those things, everything that you do, those are little wins that allow you to see you can do this. And so push through to the next thing and find the joy in what you're doing. I could see, I always wanted to move to California. I hate winter. I hate the cold weather. I'd done it for most of my life. And there was a job opportunity. Keri happened to be already out in California 3 months prior to me for a job opportunity. So we went for completely different reasons, but our paths crossed. Thankfully, we're best friends even before that happened. But when you can see every single step of the process coming together, even when you don't know what it's going to look like, no one needs to know behind the scenes it's a shit show. But when you know that you can put it together, the confidence level that you gain as a result of doing that really hard thing is incredible, and allows you to propel yourself to do something else that's different or out of the box. And people gravitate to you because, Kelly, I always wanted to do something like that, So you start to see people, you become a bit of an idol because people really see that you're someone who's done something that they thought of, but they never thought they would do it. So
yeah, no, it makes sense. It's like the positive energy will show, and people will kind of be attracted to that. Now, one theme that in the different stories that you shared that stood up, that I felt was this. Paired to this sadness of being in a situation where you're really either adapted, or every day you're feeling that somehow this is not where I should be. There is this other part of, I don't want to disappoint this person or that person or my whole family. So this question of disappointment of others could be your supervisor, but could be your partner. I've heard stories of people doing a pivot, let's say, from academia to industry, and then deciding after a year that they want to go back to academia, and then that kind of created an instability in their couple. But they ended up doing it because they knew that's what they wanted, and now everything is fine. But why are we, or not all of us, but why are we often so loath to disappoint people who either are hierarchically superior to us, or whom we depend on emotionally. They're our parents, etc. What's this deal with not wanting to disappoint, and how do we kind of reshape it into something more productive? Because it feels to me like it's not a productive feeling to have.
No. If you don't mind, I'll take it from again, because Kelly and I know each other so well, and we've done so many psychometric assessments. I'm less of an accommodator than Kelly is. So we'll have two different takes, I think, on it. And so I think for me, what is so hard is if you don't, it's the oxygen mask analogy, right? If you don't take care of yourself first, you can't be there for other people. And so I see it a lot, especially with moms, that you put everyone else first, you put all their needs first, and then all of a sudden you're like really cranky and not so nice and not healthy. And it's amazing throughout so many of our guests that maybe they squished down, David, because they said, oh, I don't want to disappoint my spouse, or I have to be a good mom, or I need to keep this job because of the money. And then all of a sudden they had a health issue, or they had some kind of breakdown. So it's like the body will say, oh, that's nice. You're lying to yourself. Okay, I'll let you do that for a while. And then I'm going to send you a warning shot, and you're going to be a little sick. And then are you going to listen to it? Some of our guests did, and some of them didn't. And then they got really sick. And so it's like your physical body even knows. And so if you don't put yourself first, if you don't figure out your own stuff, you can't be there for other people. And what's really sad is sometimes you might find out that those other people were only there because of the surface things, because you were a lawyer, because you earned a lot of money. And that loss you have to grieve, but then say, but they weren't right for me, which is really tough. People have gotten divorced because of this. This isn't, we're not saying this flippantly or lightly. We know how hard this is. But at the same time, if you can't be happy with yourself and do what you need to do, you will end up disappointing yourself and hurting others. And like I said, you'll physically get ill We've seen so many stories of that. But I am also not a helper. So it's a little bit easier for me to say Keri first and not accommodate to everyone else. But I will give that to my bestie, who is the highest accommodator I know.
And so many good points you made, Keri. For me, I just think back to when I had to tell my parents, specifically my dad, that I made the decision to move. I accepted a job and I'm moving. And you could just tell, like, on their faces, they were like, what? Like, you haven't thought this through. What are you thinking? And they would ask me various questions, of where I was in the process. Who'd you find to sell your house? Who'd you find for a moving company? Where are you going to live when you get out there? How are you going to put it all what's the order of things? How much is this going to cost? The cost of living is insane in California. How are you going to be able to, pay the bills? All of the things which I had already thought of, by the way. Like I didn't just make a knee-jerk reaction, decide I'm going to move to California, on a whim. And I just eventually told my dad, I would hope that you would be able to trust me because you've raised me to be who I am. And I know that if I have a question, I know that if I have a concern, I know that if it all goes into pieces and my life implodes, that you'll still be there for me because you love me. And of course he does. And of course he did. And he was in the car with me and my uncle and my dog driving us across the country. So, to go from a place of having a lot of doubt in his daughter to literally helping her move in and saying goodbye. It was a really cool experience, but it's painful too, because you want someone to believe in you so badly that if you don't have enough confidence in yourself and who you are, you do sometimes make decisions that are adverse to what you really want to do. And you can wind up like, the gentleman Keri referenced that said, I really wish I could have just gotten my, study philosophy and live my best life. And I'm sure that if he had to do all over again, or he's coaching someone who comes to him, he's going to give the advice that he wished he had taken.
I think, Kelly, that confidence piece is so key, and it's so scary too, because because it really is putting yourself out there. You're being very vulnerable by saying what you want and what you need, and you're allowing all these other people to judge it. And I see that with my husband. He's an artist, a painter, and it's out there, just like the book. You put it out there and now everyone gets to judge it. And, especially in the art world, you're standing by your painting and someone walks by and they're like, meh, and they keep walking. You're like, oh, okay, thanks. But it's such a vulnerable, thank you. It's such a vulnerable act though. So for Kelly to say to her parents like that, I'm going to leave, that is not typically what is done in her family. And so you have to have that confidence, which is really hard. And so practice it. Like I know Kelly and I will practice having some of those conversations. This is where you have to find your board of directors, your tribe, your group, your posse, whatever you want to call it. But to even practice it and to talk through it and to get really strong with it. I still talk to Kelly about conversations I'm going to have, or if I want to break an expectation, or I have to tell someone something that I'll feel, I love them and I want them to feel good, but I was like, oh, I got to tell them something. So it's good to have someone to bounce these ideas off of as well.
And I like that you use the term practice. It feels to me, it reminds me of being a kid, really young, and then, going to the swimming pool with floaters, and then trying the first time without floaters, and then and then you tiptoe, and then a little bit farther, and then diving straight on the deep end. It's a process. It's a self-training. Now, of course, there are, we probably all know stories of people or families where this how can I say, this difference of the family, let's say family typical culture and what you want is kind of weaponized in a way, and you kind of say, okay, you can go try, but you're on your own, and that's even a less healthy and less desirable situation, but it happens. But in life, very often we are already in the deep end of the pool as a grown-up, as an adult, and we need to be able to train ourselves to have these good habits. And it feels to me like a big part of it has to do with positive self-talk versus negative
Hmm.
self-talk. Is this something that you've looked at? Have your guests talked about how their inner discourse has helped them deal with this? Okay, my parent is kind of turning, my parent between
Yeah.
brackets is turning their back, but I am still going to dive in the deep end of the pool and try to swim to the other side.
Yeah, I think, well, you see that a lot in the LGBTQIA community, right? So I come out
Mm,
as being gay, and my family turns their back on me. So you hear that a lot in that community, and Kelly and I have a lot of ties in that community, and so we've heard that. And I think that that's when you really need to amp up the positive self-talk. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this to protect myself. I'm doing this to have the life I want to live. And if other people don't support that, I can be gracious and forgiving when they do accept it and come to I mean, I guess the correct mind of it. But I still have to go and live my life. And it's sad. I mean, this is where it is sad. And I'll talk to Kelly about losing some friends that when I did certain things or something like that, and they're not really my friends anymore, but that's okay because I am who I am now, and I like myself, and I have the confidence, and I made the right decision that I need to do. So it's just it's hard, but that positive self-talk, you really have to do that a lot because there's so
mhm.
many. I mean, listen, the whole world can give you a lot of negative self-talk. So why would you want to do it to yourself? Like the entire world's gonna be like, you're this, you're that. I mean, why would you want to do it to yourself? But Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so many reasons not to do something.
Yes.
There's so many. I mean, if you think the pro con list, I do those all the time because it does help me remember why I do something, um, and what the end goal is. Always having that sort of line of sight as to what is it that ideally I want from this. Obviously, I don't want to hurt people, but I can't help how other people are going to react to a decision that I make that really has nothing to do with them at all.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still Kelly. You'll still be able to talk to me. When I think about making the move, that hasn't changed. The accessibility, sure, I'm not in the same state, but doesn't mean you can't fly out to me. I can't fly back home, which I just did in December. So I think a lot of people go to this very fatalistic, it's all going to implode. What are you thinking? What's wrong? And I think anyone whoever has had to make a tough decision in their life, it's not like they haven't thought of those things. It's not like they haven't, thought of every single thing that could go wrong. And when you finally do to make the decision to actually go with it, just be an advocate, be a support, say, how can I help you? Um, you know, be the person, be the exception, not the rule. Because that is truly what is going to help that person in ways that you can't even conceive of.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. And sometimes what helps me too is that if you're going through something, sometimes when you're the other person, it's really not about you at all, right? It's
mhm.
about the feelings that are engendered in them now. So the fact that you didn't have a kid, maybe someone's like, well, I wish I didn't have a kid. And so now I don't even want to talk to Kelly because she invokes this, you know what I mean? She reminds me of what my life could have been like,
Mm.
or she has a career and I didn't have a career, or she has a career and I didn't want one, and who knows, but sometimes there's so much stuff from the other person that they're working through that there's quite often, especially being from the Midwest in the United States, there's a lot of, you don't act out, meaning you don't like go
Mm,
move. You don't act like you're better than others. And so there's kind of this always keeping down a little bit.
mm,
And so that's hard. So if you do go act out, they're like, well, she's too big for her britches, or she's all
mhm.
snooty or whatever. And that's their crap. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
this piece of remembering, like, a lot of it is their crap. I know when I was in an abusive relationship, I left, and the person I was talking to was also in an abusive relationship, and they were just like, well, why would you leave? You know what I mean? That kind of attitude of like, well, we're all in it together. And I'm like, no, I want to get
Mm,
out. Like, I don't want to be a part of
mhm.
it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think that helps too, remembering that what they're saying is more about them than it is about you. And that helps me.
That is a really, really interesting kind of change of angle, it does make a lot of sense. People will react because they will identify with something you said or something you did. They will compare it to their life and then react to that. It's a very, very interesting point, because it's about them, you don't need to take it personally, or
Right.
you should not take it
100%. I love
personally.
that. Yeah, don't take it personally because it's about them. They're upset that you
Amazing.
moved. They're upset that you're living your life or you decided. I was just talking to someone the other day and I was talking about the book and we're talking about expectations and she's probably, I don't know, like 50-ish or something. And she just went, huh. She looked up like this. She went, huh. I don't think I would have gotten married or had a kid if I wasn't kind of forced to.
Hmm.
Hmm. And you could just see this kind of crack then, right? All of a sudden the crack. It's just like, well, I love my kid. It's like, I didn't say you didn't, I just went, but you could tell she was like, oh, I'd have a very different life. Now you can do something with that. You can say, you know what, this is my choice and I'm glad I made it and I'm okay with it. You could say, I actually want to change some of this. I don't want to be married anymore. Or you could squish it down and just be angry
Yeah.
and be sassy with people like Kelly who don't have a kid or married, right? And they're just like, I don't like her. I don't like her. I don't like her. I don't like that she has what I have, which is
Or,
a lot of people do that. I don't like
or
you
you can,
because you
or
have
you
what I
can,
have.
yeah, or you can tell yourself, you know what, I'm gonna teach my kid to take decisions in
Yes.
this manner in the future, and then
Yes.
you pass on. You cannot go.
Yes.
We don't have the machine to go back to the past
Right,
and change things.
right.
But I love it. I love it. Now, time has flown. I can't even understand how.
I
But
know.
but it feels like it's the right moment, because we're talking about situations. You gave some examples, situations where people maybe are making a decision that's not aligned with them to not disappoint other people. We're talking about changing the way you have your inner self-talk to be more positive. But you have a whole model that you present in the book, which is the break model. Maybe, I don't know if there's a really good segue from what we just said to go into that, but I don't want to end this interview without talking about the break model. Can you pick up on that?
For sure. I always have it kind of right at the ready, because I was talking with someone about this yesterday, because they're making a relatively, I think, a very minor change to their life, but it was major to them. And so I wanted to meet them where they were at. And they're like, what do you think I should do first? How do you make the decision? How do you know if it's right or wrong? And I said, well, first you just have to figure out if it's something that you're passionate about. So, in our break model, it's being brave enough to decide that this is something that you really want. And so that's what I think about when I think of her. It takes a certain amount of bravery to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be that different from the way you currently live your life, or it could be very different. You're just doing something that you're consciously having to think about making a change to. So be brave enough to say that this is something that you want badly enough, or it may not be something you want badly enough, but use that filter. Then we talk about realize your expectations and why you want that thing so badly. What is the realization that you had that maybe there's a gap? Maybe I want to go and get an advanced degree and the PhD is exactly what I want, because then I'll be seen as an authority on this subject. Or I just have a passion about it and I want to become a professor, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about, exploring the possibilities that are around you. We talk a lot about this in coaching, learning and development, of try something, observe someone's job, ask someone who's completed a PhD program, what are the good, the bad, and the ugly? What should I be, are there timelines that I should watch out for? There's so much information available to us now that you're doing yourself a disservice by not at least doing some of that research. Then we talk about acting. What are the actions you need to take? Action is like our favorite word. It's our love language, Keri and I.
Yeah.
What are the actions you need to take to bust yourself out of that box and put yourself into a situation that is better than or different from where you are right now? And then it's about keeping it going, keeping the momentum alive, and sustaining that change. And that's where it's so thrilling to see people truly live an authentic life, the life that they were meant to live. And so, again, to bring it back to our podcast, we love hearing the stories and bringing them to the rest of the world, because you hear stories about, celebrities where they have excess money maybe and access to lots of options, where for you and I, it doesn't always look that way. And it can be very isolating to choose to do something that goes against the grain of what society, your parents, you, anyone who loves you may have thought or wanted you to do.
It makes total sense. And there's one aspect that you said in there that really sticks with me, which is find people to model or find people to champion you in a certain way. And this is it's a recurring question in my interviews because I get so many different reactions to it. Often you have someone that you're meeting and that has this professional journey or academic journey, and that says, "Oh, I had great mentors, and you know, and they've really helped me and decide and orient myself." And then you have other people that you ask them, "So, did you have any mentorship? Or you know, did someone make a difference for you once you got into this domain or into this or into the PhD or whatever?" And then they'll say no, and I wonder whether you have advice for people who, let's say, like me, you know, switch continent to go do this thing, which in my case was a PhD, and are kind of, you know, needing to create a new social network that they don't have because they're in a new place. And you've done that too. You're going to college is kind of the same thing. And why, you know, first a reflection, why do, like this, let's say half of the people say, no, there was no one. And then the other half somehow magically, and I know it's not magical. I'm kind of asking this question like this. I have some answers, but I'd like your reflection on it, on what makes people find mentors. How does that happen? And mentors and models that can advocate for them and that can kind of champion them and pull them up. Do you have any reflection on that?
A couple things on the mentor. I think sometimes they just appear when you need them to appear. So I've never specifically gone out to find a mentor and be very overly structured about it. That's also my personality, is not overly structured about that stuff. But when I look back at some people, what they've said to me have kind of changed my perspective. So I think there is this kind of journey part. But when you asked, I wouldn't look for a mentor. You know what I'd look for? A cheerleader. That's what you need. And not like a cheerleader that never clocks you on anything to say like, okay, girl, don't do that, right? You have spinach in your teeth. You can't, when you talk like that, that sounds really strange. Like, don't, right? But someone who you always know is in your corner. And like, I'll tear up because I have that with Kelly, but she will still tell me, like, I don't think we should say it like that, or I don't think that sounds right, or you know what I mean? Like, she'll still tell me, but I always know I can go to her and say, what do you think? Should we try this? Yeah, maybe we should try it. Let's think through it. And so I found more than having a mentor at certain places in my life, having that cheerleader, having someone in your corner, having someone knowing that no matter what, like they're in it with you, that's freaking amazing. That's, to me, maybe because I also didn't have that as much as a kid. So I look for it a lot. Okay. But that just boosts your confidence, boosts like your thought process, and I can do it. So that cheerleader part is the most exciting and life-changing for me personally.
Kelly, on your side.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's, having the cheerleader, but I also love surrounding myself with people who are just naturally inquisitive and curious. They ask the questions. PhDs among my favorites because you are always asking and seeking the answer. And you, even when you've written a dissertation, you're like, I don't know. I mean, I think there's more work to be done. And anyone who's interested in learning more and improving upon themselves and discovering something about themselves and not just sitting idle or not just sitting wallowing in, I guess this is the way it's going to be. There is always a way out, even if and I'm not trying to make light of very serious situations and trying to, say that people are incapable of change, but inherently those that do decide to make a change, or those who had that natural sense of curiosity and inquisitiveness, are the people that I've gravitated to because they help me when I don't know what the answer is. They are the people I love because they can help me think through the tough problems because I've already talked myself out of it and I know I don't want to. So I need someone to help me get me back on track. So lifelong learners, continuous improvement folks are my favorites because they really do help you when you are down and you're starting to question absolutely everything about life. So
that's great. It's a great pair of like different ways of looking at it, the cheerleader part, but also people who are like you said, creative, and that was the kind of the title, how to pivot creatively.
Yeah.
And now we kind of loop the loop with
Look at
with
that.
creativity at the end.
Yeah.
And it does make total sense to me. Now a question to you. So a lot of the people who are listeners are on LinkedIn, for example. Can you do this on LinkedIn? Can you, if you see a profile of someone who maybe you're still in graduate school, they're I don't know, CEO, or they're of a startup, or they have a career that's totally different. So is it legitimate to approach the person, say, hi, I'm doing this degree, which I saw that you also did, and I see that now you're here. Can we chat? I'd love to know how this materialized for you. Is this something that you'd recommend?
Sure.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I work in an organization right now where we advocate heavily for internships. And so,
Okay.
internships are a great way for people to gain access to not only the knowledge and the technical skills, but also the people in the networks that allow for them to, have a career trajectory or understand more about that specific role. A, to find out if it's something that they're really interested in, but B, to determine what maybe part of that particular industry is more appealing to me. So absolutely. I mean, I think there's nothing more flattering than receiving a message saying, I'd like to learn about you and how you got to where you are today. Can you tell me your story? People love talking about themselves inherently. So I remember going to a sales training and someone said, salespeople love themselves because they're their own favorite subject matter. So be your own favorite subject matter and advocate for yourself by doing things that might seem a little bit out of the box, because you'll never know who will pick up that phone or reach out to you and say, sure, I'd be happy to talk.
Yeah. And I think that if I could go back to my younger self, it would be contact 100 people. And if one person contacts you back, that's great. Because honestly, first of all, you don't take it to, like we were talking, don't take it personally that someone doesn't contact you. You don't know what they're going through, right? They could be going through whatever, they're busy, there's a sick kid, there's a sick whatever, there's a fire, you know what I mean? Like you just don't know what's happening. So just go, okay, maybe they'll get back to me one day, but like keep doing it. And I wish I reached out to more people, because that networking and just talking to some people really does open more doors and gets you to think about things differently. So yeah. And most people, like Kelly said, they do want to help. If they have the time, they'll totally want to tell you their career. No one asks. I mean, your family doesn't ask. Really, think about it. Your family just really, oh, what's going on? Tell me about the lessons you've learned. I mean, come on. No one asked you that. So if you get to do that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it feels to me that you could even kind of have have both, the best of both worlds, which is not only you'll have someone you'd like to model, but eventually, if the chemistry is right, you might have a cheerleader too, come out of these types. But this only happens, I think, like you're kind of suggesting, if you do it consistently, and if it's like a garden that you're tending to and that you want to grow over time.
Exactly.
Keri and Kelly, an hour has passed so fast. I kind of want to kind of sum up some of the points that I before finishing the interview that are staying with me. And so in this book, whatever the hell you want, and with the break model, I think what's really interesting for me is that and I think all of us, because as humans, I think that's how things happen. I have had some boxes that I've been in, and then I've broken out of them, and I see how it aligns with the stories that you have shared in the book. So the people you've interviewed on the podcast, and I think it's really important to give people tools to be able to envision something different and then slowly start to implement it. because like you said, the change is not like that. It's not like
Mhm.
Superman goes into the booth, the telephone booth, and
Right.
comes out.
Mhm.
That's not how it happens. And then the other thing, it feels to me that none of what you present and from your communication, it's not a question of, oh, let's just tear the box that I was in, and burn it, and there's no negativity. It's a positive exercise. So
Mhm.
the image that's coming to mind is, you may have gotten to a point of life where you're in a small box, which is in another larger box, and in a, that it's kind of like I said, a Russian doll
Mhm.
of boxes. But you've if you were a kid, and usually everyone has been a kid sometime in their life, you know that when you have a lot of boxes that are inside each other, and you turn them around and you start doing this exercise, you can pile them up and make a tower. So it feels to me that what you want is that people grow out of this boxed up existence, and actually build themselves up to a better and better
Oh, I
situation
love that.
Yeah.
on a tower made of the boxes
Mhm.
that they're there. You were there in the past,
Yeah.
so but they're below you now. You're higher, and that's I think the feeling I want to stick with after this conversation.
I
That I
love
hope
that.
the audience will stick with. I anyway, you're already reacting to it, so I guess
I
you
love
like
it.
my metaphor.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
do. I love it. Because in a way, in a way, you kind of have to respect the boxes,
That's it.
meaning it's what made you today. So
Mhm.
they did
Exactly.
make you, and then you can help others get
Yep.
out of them more quickly, perhaps. That's what Kelly and I try to do. And I love the image, though, of you climbing to the top of all those boxes.
Yeah.
That's a great image. Thank you for that.
My pleasure, and that's what allows us to tell the story. Look, I'm going to show you my
Yeah.
Mhm.
first box, and then
Yes.
and show the
Yep.
progression. Now, Kelly, we're reaching the end of the interview. If people are curious about let's say the break model or the book or what you do in general, where for people who are watching, there's this
Mhm.
link
Yes.
key going
Yeah.
on the screen. But for those who are just listening, where can they find you? How can they contact you? Where can they learn about what you do, the content, the type of ideas that you're putting forward with your work?
I think the best way is to go to our website at abrachigroup.com. That is the best. Everything's there, the podcast, the book, what we do, our contact information. You can also link up with us on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of Kelly Gunthers. There's not a lot of Keri Ohlriches. It's pretty easy to find us. You know what I mean? Like that is pretty easy.
Yeah.
So I think those are the best ways. And then you
Mhm.
can always purchase our books on Amazon.
Mhm.
Perfect. I will put all those links in the show notes of the
Thank
episode when
you.
the audio podcast form is goes live. Again, the book is Whatever the Hell You Want. The podcast is the Breakout Podcast, super easy, and also you're on Facebook as Warriors of HR, which
Mhm.
has to do with your work. Kelly, this was such a pleasure. I think
Thank you.
these subjects they're sensitive, but I think with the years going, it's easier and easier. Well, we're growing, we're growing older too, and but it's easier and easier for us to talk about it. But I think as a society, it's
Mhm.
easier and more normalized to talk about them.
Yes.
And it's a pleasure with people like you who have so many good stories to share, and also such how can I say, first person experience of what you're
Yeah.
talking about, that makes it so much more memorable, but also impactful in my point of view. So I want to thank you. This was a great conversation. You're always welcome to come back on Beyond the Thesis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to close the stream. Thanks for those who have been live. I've seen some people. So see you on the next live recording. This is it for this week. I hope you're having a great start of the year. And if you just are seeing this now at the end, eventually you can rewatch everything on LinkedIn or YouTube, or you can wait for the audio version. So see you soon.